Hello and welcome to Lynchburg Live. I'm your host, Linda Smith. As we're approaching the holiday season, many people in our area, down on their luck, turn to helping organizations like Parkview Community Mission for food and assistance. Growing from humble beginnings, Parkview offers assistance to those in need not just once or twice a year, but throughout the year. My guest tonight is Reverend Phil Showers from Parkview Community Mission. Welcome, Phil. So glad to have you.
Thank you, Linda. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight.
You know, as we get started, tell me how long you've been pastor.
I've been there 5.5 years now.
And how long has the mission been up and running?
The mission's been there since the mid-1990s, about 1995, 1996 was when it began. As you said, humble beginnings. It was rather serendipitous. One Wednesday night, Parkview was having a fellowship meal like a lot of churches have on Wednesday night before they'll have choir practice and things like that. And a hungry fellow just happened to knock on the door and said he smelt the food and asked if he could get something to eat. And they said, sure, come on in and sit down at the table. And when the meal was over, they invited him to come back the following week. And he did. And he brought a friend.
That's what I was going to ask you. Didn't he bring somebody with him?
Yeah. And then the following week, they brought more friends. And next thing you know, they discovered that there was a real need right there in the Midtown community to help hungry working people. And that's something that I want people to realize. This isn't just homeless people that are being served. These are working families that are barely getting by, trying to pay rent, or maybe they have a mortgage and a car payment. A lot of them walk. And so it's helping people that are homeless. It's also helping working folks. There's a lot of senior citizens who are now trying to get by just on Social Security. And so the supper on Wednesday night provides a good hot food, but it's also providing spiritual food as well, because it's not just a soup kitchen, it's also a fellowship meal with praise and worship. The second ministry that goes on at Parkview Community Mission is our Food for Families ministry. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, as how that has grown as well here in the last 5 years.
I was going to ask you later, but I'll ask you now because we're sort of leading into it. How has the economy affected Parkview Mission and the numbers of people that you have?
Well, it's been paralleling the economy. You've heard of how there are now 40-some million people on food stamps. And so with the downturn that began about really before 2008, it's been grown steadily. We became an agency of the Lynchburg Food Bank in the summer of 2007. The first month we gave food to 50 families. That has grown to like 700 to 800 families a month. And so the need to just steadily increase month after month, year after year. And so it's a combination of people that were already down on luck, people that were out of work, but then with the economy tanking as it has, it's just been a tremendous demand. But you know, God has been at work in taking care of His children all along. So as the demand has increased, so has God's supply.
You know, one of the things that you said when you visited our church that I thought was so good was talking about when these people come to pick up the food that you all donate to them, to invite them in, to have them come and pick up their food by coming into the church. And not only does that give them an opportunity for fellowship, but it preserves their dignity. And, you know, I think that that's so important. As people who were productive people and find themselves in this terrible situation, you know, turn to missions and people for help. They're still who they were, and they still want to retain their dignity.
Absolutely, and that is one reason why our Wednesday night supper really made a transition from being a soup kitchen. And don't misunderstand, our soup kitchens are performing a valuable service to give hot food to folks. But as Jesus said to Martha, and Martha was complaining about her sister Mary, Jesus said, Martha, what you're doing is good and useful, but Mary has found a better way. Right. And to us, the better way is to have a fellowship meal, whereas they're sitting around the table enjoying a hot food, they can also enjoy the company of other people. It's about relationships when you get right down to it, Linda.
Right.
It's our relationship with God that motivates us to establish a relationship with our brothers and sisters. And so rather than just meeting the need, the first priority is to meet people. Once you meet a person and you get to know each other, you're in a much better situation to help meet the real needs, not the perceived needs, but the real needs.
And therefore, but for the grace of God go I.
Oh, amen. I think of that constantly, you know, and as you see different people come and go, and particularly with this economy being as it is, I see young mothers with their children, and I'll go over to talk to them, and I find they're there for the first time, and you can see the hurt in their eyes.
Oh, I'm sure.
They don't want to be there getting food, but this mother needs to feed these growing boys.
And her priorities are her children.
Exactly right. And so we do try to make it as easy a process as possible, and one that does preserve their dignity, but also let them know that just as his eyes on the sparrow, God's eyes on them as well.
Well, I just think it's wonderful what you do. And you still do have the Wednesday night dinners.
Yes.
That's a continuing thing.
Yes. As a matter of fact, as we're speaking, we've been shut down for the last couple of months, doing some major renovation at the Parkview Community Mission. And I believe this program will be airing on November 21st for the first time, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And Shiloh United Methodist is preparing a big Thanksgiving meal. That here's a small church in our community that people are familiar with. The Forest area. It sits right on 221 at Grays Mill Center. Very small church, but these folks have a good Christian heart, and they get out there every year and they help to do this meal. They ask for a specific busy time and prepare homemade pies and the turkeys, and so it's a delicious meal that warms the hearts as well as the bodies.
When you were going through this renovation, were you able to keep doing what you were doing, or was that temporarily on hold?
Sadly, we had to. Linda, have you ever tried changing the oil in your car while you're driving down the street?
No, but I've never tried changing the oil in my car anyway.
If anyone that's changed oil in their cars can tell you, you've got to park it.
Right.
You know, even the Navy will dry dock ships on occasion in order to give them the maintenance that they need. And that's the way it was with the facility there at Parkview. It was built as a church with a fellowship hall and Sunday school rooms. There was no intention when it was built to be having thousands of people come in to get food, and literally over a couple million pounds of food to travel in and out. And so we were fortunate to get a grant from the Easley Foundation to replace the doors, they're the main entrance to the ground level, and also the tile flooring. The Greater Lynchburg Community Trust has given us a grant to hire the first-time paid staff now, so we have a new director, Glenda Fort,
and you told
who's
me,
come on board. Yes. Go ahead.
You told me that you had a donation of a walk-in refrigerator or walk-in freezer, which is such a wonderful gift.
We had 2 commercial refrigerators donated, and we were able to purchase the food bank's walk-in freezer. They were originally up on Fort Avenue, and when they moved to their new headquarters in downtown a couple of years ago, they sold us their 2-year-old walk-in freezer at about a third of what they had paid for it, and then we were able to, you know, do the improvements to get it there. Well, it's been a godsend because now we can get meat that's frozen and keep it to use it. We were buying turkeys last year at pennies on the pound rather than the price you're paying at Thanksgiving for turkeys to give away. Hunters for the Hungry will bring a couple of tons of food over.
That's wonderful now that you have some place to put it.
Yes.
And you know, one of the things we talked about before was rescued food. I love that. It just, I like rescued food. And you all get rescued food. Would you tell our audience what that is?
Sure. Well, rescued food is, as the name implies, food that would be tossed away and no longer used. It's being rescued and given to people that can use it. One of the greatest contributors is Walmart. Walmart has a program through Feeding America whereby food that is right at the date is now given to food pantries such as Parkview Community Mission. And then we get it and we distribute it immediately to people that need it. We have to do it right away because this is food that has a very short shelf life.
Perishables usually.
There are bananas, eggs. We have a lot of fresh produce, apples when they're in season, oranges, because around the holidays, whatever you're seeing in the store, they have a tremendous supply chain where they have to move out unsold product that they to make room for what's coming in. And instead of them throwing in the dump, this is food now that's going to feed people right here in our community. And we're talking about 300,000 pounds of food a year.
That's incredible. That really is. You know, people in this town, I've found out by doing this show, are so generous, and they will come and meet a need, you know, when it's there. And I just think that's wonderful for Walmart. You all, as a church, box this food that you get and distribute it. Or how do you distribute it? How do you box it?
Well, we have been boxing it in advance. And the way that would work is we would, well, in order to box it, you got to first receive it.
Right.
So just to give you an idea of the process, we would get food from the food bank. And many viewers may not realize that the food bank operates similar to the Federal Reserve. Just like you can't go to a Federal Reserve bank and get a loan or get money. They give it to the banks and the banks distribute. Well, the food pantry works the same way. If a person needs food, they may go there one time only, and they'll get a list of other food bank agencies, and that's where they will go each month. And they can only go to one food bank agency a month to get a supplemental amount of food. And that's something people need to realize as well, that this is supplemental food. It's not intended to be their primary source of food. Even food stamps, which now has an acronym SNAPS, is supplemental food. In fact, SNAP stands for a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And so that's intended to give them maybe a week or two's worth of food. And our goal has been to provide the other week or two's worth of food that they get. So we get food from the food bank. They deliver.
Food bank delivers,
oh,
that's
yes.
great.
When we first got food, we got 300 pounds of food from the food bank that I brought over in my car. Now they will deliver 3,000 to 6,000 pounds of food a week. We have to take that and put it in our stock room. And we had been packing in boxes to distribute because we would have 125 families come in within a 2-hour period to get the food. When we reopen, we're starting a pilot program where folks will actually be more like shopping. They will come in and be able to go through the food area, and then if they don't like pinto beans, they don't have to get pinto beans.
That's great.
You know, but if there's food there they do like, that's what they will be able to put in their bag, just like in the grocery store. Now, we don't have a grocery store full of food, but we have good, nutritious food. One of the things that we really strive for is to make sure we're giving them the staples, nutritious food. And God has been so gracious in providing that. I remember 5 years ago when we were first getting food from the food bank, we would get some breads and things like that. I said, Lord, this is great. You know, people need this. But it sure would be nice if we had meat and potatoes and fresh vegetables to give people. And now we're getting it by the truckloads.
That's wonderful.
And as I said a while ago, as the need increase, God has provided through the supply.
So most of your church members really are the ones who cook the food on Wednesday nights, as well as box the food?
It's actually not our church members, but members of the churches in the community. Like I said, in 2010, Parkview Community Mission became a mission of the Lynchburg district of the United Methodist Church. And so it's primarily members of other Methodist churches that will come and volunteer, but it's not limited to the Methodists. And I want to encourage anyone out there, whether you're a member of a church or not, if God has been laying on your heart to help your neighbor, then come by and see us, and we have work for you. With the new process that we're going to be implementing, we're going to need people who can help receive the food in from the food bank and put it where it needs to go. We will need people that will be there to assist the people as they shop. We'll need people who can operate computers to help process.
And these are all volunteers?
All volunteers. We have not had a paid staff until just this fall.
Wonderful.
When, like I said, thanks to a grant from the Greater Lynchburg Community Trust, we were able to hire a part-time person. We need a full-time person, but they provide the part-time, and she's doing plenty of part-time work, let me tell you.
Now, what are satellite missions?
Well, the satellite missions were other churches in the area that are coming under our umbrella, and that's been a pilot as well. We were getting a lot of people coming from just outside of the Midtown area, with gas being as high as it is, and some people don't even have their own transportation. We said, rather than them coming all the way into Midtown, if we could get the food out to where the people are, that would help them, and just as importantly, it would help the churches. People become members of churches so that they can be followers of Jesus Christ. And so a disciple needs to engage in discipleship activity. And so many churches are focused strictly on their own internal operation, because the down economy has hurt them as well, that they really haven't had the time to plan and execute a local mission. And so the satellite program was a way to really give them a turnkey ministry and to establish relationship with their neighbors. Not by going out and evangelizing, not that there's anything wrong with evangelism. I believe in that wholeheartedly. That's not something we do, it's part of who we are. But you know, Jesus fed the 5,000 because they were hungry. And the disciples came to him and said, there's a need, these people are hungry, let's send them out to get something to eat. And they said, Jesus, no, you feed them.
Now, you have specific clients, is that right? Or do you call them clients, a specific group of people that are signed up that come and get food?
The way it works is we distribute food by appointment only.
By appointment, that's what I
And
meant.
the reason we do that, Linda, is very simply, we want to make sure whoever comes to get food that day has food there to get. If we just open the doors and first come, first serve, then we would run out of food every time. And we don't want to send anyone away hungry. And so on a typical day, like I said, it'll be 100 to 125 households that are coming by to get food. And so we make sure that we have enough on hand to give everyone who comes. Doing it by appointment only helps us to make sure we have enough volunteers on hand to assist, as well as enough food. And when the folks come, they can be assured there'll be food there for them.
So you feed, or you have these boxes of food for approximately 125 people a day? Is that what you said?
Yes.
That is just almost too much to wrap your head around.
And we'll do that twice a week. Now, with us reopening, and again, by going to a different way of distributing the food, by letting them come in and pick it off the shelf, it's going to take longer for them to do that. So we're going to actually be open more days to allow time for that to happen. So that means there's going to be volunteer opportunities several days a week. If you're looking for something to do, 845-8468.
That's fine.
Maybe we can get a little graphic up or something with that later.
You brought some pictures, and I don't want to miss those. So Phil, if you'll put them up on the screen, we'll get this Phil to tell us what they are.
That is the front of the sanctuary. And just a little bit of local history. This sanctuary was originally down on Church Street in Lynchburg. This was the original home of Centenary United Methodist, which was the first Methodist church in Lynchburg. And they moved out to Rivermont, and it sat empty for a number of years. And there was a smaller church there on the corner of Memorial and Wadsworth, and when they outgrew it, they bought the old sanctuary, disassembled it brick by brick, and reassembled that during World War II.
Church.
It is a gorgeous facility, and that was quite a story in itself. Here's a picture of people coming and picking up food that we'd received from Walmart, and you can see it's very much like a farmer's market. I mean, this was food that earlier that morning had been picked up by volunteers. And we have rescued food, and as you see, as soon as we get it, then we're turning around and giving it to people. And here you see a couple of volunteers, that's the late Larry Brooks and Red Carr, weighing the food that just had been picked up from Walmart. We have to weigh it to keep track so that Walmart gets credit for what they've donated. We want to make sure they get credit for every ounce. And there was Larry Brooks in our stockroom. That was food that we'd received from the food bank. We get USDA food And also we have to purchase some food because, quite frankly, the USDA food is very scarce. And it goes from feast to famine, so we never know how much of that. But that was Larry in the stockroom.
How much of your food would you guess is rescued food?
I would say at least 50% of
That's
it.
a lot.
And here we are loading a truck at Walmart. Before we had trucks donated, we had Snack Time vending in Lynchburg donated a small box truck, and we used that until we ran it out. And then Gleaning for the World donated a bigger
Wonderful.
box truck. But here we were loading up food. You can see the produce boxes there from Walmart. And there's eggs, if you'll notice on the picture.
I see. Does your need increase with the holidays?
It does. But keep in mind, people are hungry year-round.
Right.
But we have noticed that October, November, and December, those are the busiest months. There you see some people who've been in getting the food, and they've got a grocery cart full of food that
Wonderful.
they're taking home. And again, this is actually the fellowship hall in the church. Like I said, it looks like the farmer's market
It
downtown
does.
almost, but that's actually the fellowship hall where we have our suppers on Wednesday night, and again on Saturday mornings and Thursdays afternoons. It's like a farmer's market as they get. You can see it's some very good fresh fruit and vegetables.
That's beautiful produce.
Yeah, and I say it's been a godsend to have vegetables
Yeah, that's
and
wonderful.
fruit. Here again we are at the Walmart loading, and you can see it takes quite a few people. We were loading up 5 and 6 pickup loads of food twice a week.
Do you have other goods available besides food, like diapers or
Yes,
toilet paper,
Yes.
the essentials?
we certainly do, and diapers are something that the people who are on WIC cannot get diapers. And so this was something we started to help the mothers who were coming on Wednesday night for supper. They would come to us and say, can you help us with diapers? Or someone might say, Pastor, do you happen to have some toilet paper? And so we try to help meet those needs as well.
Right.
This time of year, it's important for people to realize that Gleaning for the World is providing missions like ours blankets that they get. These are
Wonderful.
nice brand new wool blankets. And matter of fact, I've given out a blanket and found a couple of days later someone was sleeping under the front steps of the church. So it's keeping warm. This is the Wednesday night supper.
There was just a picture up there of the women feeding,
Oh, okay. Well,
serving.
Yes, and you can see the joy on people's faces, both the people who are serving and the people who are receiving.
And it looks like a family atmosphere, and I think that that's certainly to your credit.
But, you know, it really has been a new faith community forming on Wednesday nights. Some of these folks have their own churches that they attend. Some of them have actually had no church, and we've been able to sit down
Great.
around the table and listen to their stories
Great.
and help lead people to Christ. And a real joy, Linda, is when someone who's been coming to receive food is now then able to be on the other side of that table and serve food.
I'm sure they feel like that's giving back.
Exactly.
And, and that's really important.
Yeah, oh, it is.
Those were great pictures. Now, the other items you supply, are they given to you all by food banks, or is that something that your church just goes out and buys napkins and hands them diapers and that kind of thing?
A lot of those items are donated by other churches. In fact, some of the United Methodist women in the area will then collect these diapers and then bring them by on a regular basis. Same thing with some of the paper products. We've had to purchase them, especially what we use for the Wednesday night suppers. And again, Gleaning for the World has just been wonderful.
And you know,
in what they've donated.
I'm sure they're overwhelmed right now too with trying
with
to
the
help the
floods
people
and
on
the
the East
storms
Coast.
and things, yes.
All right. If one of our audience members needs or wants to volunteer or make a donation, do you have a website that they can go to, or is it best just to make a phone call to you?
The best thing to do is to make a phone call, 845-8468, and they will probably get the answering machine because
Okay.
there's a lot of people calling to make appointments for their food. Or they can just stop by during normal business hours and ring the doorbell. Someone will come and let them know they're there to volunteer.
Believe it or not, we only have 4 more minutes.
I can
And
believe it.
there, if you could tell me quickly what your future plans are for Parkview.
Well, I can tell you, it's surrendering God's will and whatever He has in store for us. Our mission statement at Parkview Community Mission says that we're there to offer people help with their present life, to offer hope for a better life, and to offer Christ for eternal life. And so, going forward, we're looking at trying to help people move beyond their present circumstances. Now, we could feed people till Christ comes again, and there's still going to be plenty of hungry people. Jesus said so Himself.
Exactly.
We'd like to go to the next level and get at some of the root causes of poverty. And so we would really love to have people in our community who has ideas on how we can help people to move beyond having to just go to a food pantry for food, but can develop better job skills that can get the things they need to help provide for their family, you know. And again, we're all God's children.
All right, I'm going to toss this question out to you and see if you can answer it in 1 minute.
If not, I'll toss it back to you.
How does working with this mission affect you personally?
Oh, it is such a humbling experience. It truly is, because there's no way in the world any one individual can do that. And I want you all to realize I am the least important person there. And I don't say that with any type of false humility. It's the truth.
It takes
there are
a
folks
village.
like Larry Brooks gave his life almost because he was in poor health. But he was there doing it as much as he can. There's just so many volunteers that God is bringing in. And I want y'all to know it's been an amazing thing to be there really working vigorously, trying to get food out to people. And a complete stranger shows up and says, God laid on my heart to come by and help y'all. Is there anything I can do? And we immediately put them to work. So we see God in this. This is what is personally rewarding for me, that I know I'm doing what God has called me to, because I see His hand in making you succeed, in spite of my shortcomings.
I hate to cut you off because I think you all do such wonderful things. And I thank you so much for being on the show, and hope you get some volunteers because of this show.
God will provide.
And have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed